now going to move straight on to the agenda for today, and that is to introduce Mark Drakeford, First Minister of Wales, as someone who's been really instrumental in the direction of so many policies within Wales that I think we attune with. Before I do that, I just would like to read out one of the quotes that Robert Owen has. There's so many things that are so pertinent to our values today, and that's why I think things like that Jeremy Miles, the Education Minister, is doing about the development of a schools programme in respect of people like Robert Owen is so important. This is the one I picked for today from Robert Owen, from his book, The Social System, Constitution, Laws and Regulations of a Community, 1826. There is but one mode by which man can possess in perpetuity all the happiness which his nature is capable of enjoying, and that is by the union and cooperation of all for the benefit of all. Something that probably couldn't be more pertinent at this very moment in time. After Mark's spoken, I think Mark has agreed to take one question on a burning issue, one major question. And because today is about big ideas, it's about how we go forward and we actually make change. I'm going to leave it to Dave through the chat to identify what that major question is, and it can't be anything to do with Eurovision, okay? So one big question we'll take right at the end. But I'm going to go straight over now to Mark Drakeford, First Minister of Wales, who I see is on the screen. Mark, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Over to you.
Wel, bore da, Mick, diolch yn fawr am wahoddiad I fod gyda chi gyd bore ma. Thank you very much indeed for the invitation to be with you this morning. Apologies for the one question issue. There is a Welsh Executive Committee to enjoy later this morning, and I mustn't be late for that. You've got a really ambitious programme ahead today, bringing together such a variety of themes: community wealth building, the legacy of Robert Owen and the cooperative principles, and how to get big things done. I'm going to try and touch on all of those in the next 20 minutes. I was tempted, and I might try and come back to the very end, to begin by remembering what Dewi Sant, St David, said, Gwnewch y pethau bychan, do the small things. And in some ways, if you're going to get big things done, you don't do them without attending to all those smaller building blocks that lead to those foundations on which the bigger things can be built for the future. And all the things I'm going to mention today are ideas which have behind them a much larger set of components, those small things that lead to the bigger ideas that I hope to discuss with you. I'm going to really begin, however, by reflecting briefly on one big idea that has been in the news a lot in Wales over the last 10 days, and which has the word cooperation in its title, because a Labour government at the Senedd is sustained in getting the big things we want to get done during this Senedd term by a cooperation agreement with another political party. Another political party which we know has been in the news for very difficult reasons. A report that lays bare a culture which nobody at all could ever be prepared to sanction. And for some, that has led to questions about whether the cooperation agreement itself can be sustained into the future. Well, my view is that we have to make every effort to continue to work in cooperation with other parties of the centre-left in the Senedd, parties that share a good deal of the cooperative way of thinking, and which by cooperation we are able to achieve some big things which alone would be beyond our political capability. I'm going to suggest 3 qualities which I think are to be found in these big ideas, and they are qualities which I think resonate very directly with the legacy of Robert Owen himself. Now, there are many other qualities I could have identified, and there is a certain arbitrary quality in identifying just 3. But for today, at least, I'm going to suggest to you that 3 qualities that are to be found across the range of big ideas I'm going to talk about are courage, innovation, and persistence. I think those things are to be found in the cooperation agreement itself. It does take political courage on the behalf of any 2 political parties to form an agreement between them. Politics is, by its nature, adversarial. You know who you are because you know who you're not. And overcoming those tribal boundaries in order to form an agreement with another party does take political courage. In the case of our cooperation agreement, it is certainly rooted in innovation, because an agreement of this sort has never been struck before. We've had parliamentary sessions in Wales where we've run on informal agreements with other parties. We've had sessions where we've been in full coalition with other parties, but we've never had an entirely bespoke, made in Wales approach in which we have a cooperation agreement that covers 46 identified areas in which we are committed to work together. But beyond that, we are able to conduct politics as normal, speaking up for the things that we separately believe in, and debating those things vigorously and robustly as well. And the agreement quite certainly requires persistence, because you have to build the coalition of support around it every single day, because every single one of those 46 issues requires, as I said in my very introduction, a set of small building blocks, step-by-step agreements, line-by-line debates that lead you in the end to being able to deliver the 46 commitments that are in it. Now, I'm going to rattle past you 6 different examples from those 46 commitments, 3 of which I think I would argue we have largely now completed, and 3 of which are to come. All of them, in their way, I believe, are big ideas. All of them are ideas which, to different extents, draw on those 3 qualities of courage, innovation, and persistence that I've suggested to you are linking themes in getting any big ideas done. So my 3 to begin with are 3 which I would argue we have largely now completed. All of these 3 issues are of different levels of significance. I'm going to start with the smallest one and work my way up that hierarchy in both groups. So the cooperation agreement commits us to developing a new sanctuary model of care for young people experiencing mental health crises in their lives. A model that is not about old-fashioned medical models, a model that recognizes that often what young people who are experiencing mental distress need is somewhere where they can feel safe, where they can feel looked after, where they can regroup, where they have adults around them in whom they can trust, and then rebuild a sense of resilience in order to be able to continue with their lives. The sanctuary model has a clear cooperative principle at its heart because it brings together not simply public services themselves, but partners in the third sector particularly. Partners who are able to bring an innovative approach to the way in which services for those young people are provided, and where persistence in sticking with young people going through very difficult times, not being shaken off by the inevitable reversals that come with trying to help people who are having to rebuild parts of their future. All those ideas, courage because this is new and because it hasn't been tried before, innovative and persistent in the way that I've described, and as I say, with cooperation at its heart. It is happening already in Wales. I'm talking to you from Pembrokeshire today, and just down the road here in Haverfordwest, we have that sanctuary model already operating on the ground, providing a lead to its introduction right across Wales. Here's my second example of something that's already been done. The cooperation agreement commits us to establishing a constitutional commission to look at the options that exist for Wales in the future, particularly options that exist in the context of a perilous United Kingdom. Now, establishing the commission requires political courage because every single political party in Wales has agreed to take part in it. And as I say, persuading all parties to share in a common endeavour is never easy because it's against the grain of the way in which politics is normally conducted. But it definitely does draw on that sense of cooperative futures in which, even when we disagree on lots of things, we search for the common ground where we believe we can all make a contribution and all see the benefit. The Constitutional Commission is an innovative development. We've never established one of this sort before. And it certainly requires persistence because the big ideas with which it grapples are ideas that are never likely to have a simple resolution. There's no end point to these debates. What you are doing is capturing the state of debate at a particular moment in a nation's history. We're hugely lucky to have the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, and Professor Laura McAllister as the co-chairs of that commission. They are 3/4 of their way through their work, and we will have their final report at the end of this year. It is one of the big ideas that are at the heart of the programme that we are pursuing together, and it will create a big idea debate beyond the life of the Commission itself. Here's my third and final example of something that has, I believe, largely been completed already. The cooperation agreement commits us jointly to tackle the problems associated with second home ownership here in Wales. And as I said, I'm speaking to you from Pembrokeshire, where that problem is absolutely real, and where young people in particular find themselves unable to fashion a future for themselves in the communities in which they were born because of the way in which people with deep pockets already are able to buy up properties in those communities, making it very difficult for local people to be able to continue to find accommodation and ways of animating those communities for the future. The package of measures we've drawn together as a result of the cooperation agreement is complex. It has 7 different strands. It involves local and national taxation measures. It involves a highly innovative approach to planning. It involves major investment in bringing empty properties back into use and increasing the supply of social and affordable housing in those communities. It definitely requires courage because we are talking about a lobby, second home owners, who are, as I say, well resourced, thundering leading articles in the Daily Telegraph, not an organ with which many of you will be familiar, attacking the Welsh Government's policy in this area. And it's not a policy that is going to transform things overnight. It is a policy that will require persistence in the way in which we translate these new possibilities created through the cooperation agreement into action on the ground in those communities where second home ownership is altering the nature of those communities and not altering it for the better. These are genuinely big ideas. The problem of second home ownership is one found in many parts of the United Kingdom, not just in Wales, but I think we can genuinely claim that a combination of courage, innovation, and persistence means that we are breaking new policy ground here in a way that is yet to be achieved elsewhere. And it's only done through cooperation. It's only done by the pooling of powers between the Welsh Government, local government, the actions of our colleagues in the social housing movement. We pool our resources in a way that allows us collectively and cooperatively to make a real difference. 3 ideas then, Chair, that are still to come, where we are working on them as part of the cooperation agreement. First of all, we're committed to a community food strategy. Many of you will be familiar with, I've been watching Dave Smith on the screen and remembering conversations with Dave going back over 20 years about community food ideas. The way in which we can harness the commitment of people on the ground in every part of Wales to do more for the local growing, production, distribution and consumption of food that people can have confidence in and feel an ownership of. The community food strategy is in development. It will come forward, I hope, during the next 12 months. Here's my second example. We're committed to eliminate private profit taking in the provision of services for children who are in the care of local authorities. I can tell you that this is a policy that absolutely requires courage. We have a major pushback from private providers in this area, and they too have deep pockets and believe that they are able to make what I would regard as quite threatening noises to the Welsh Government about the way in which they will react if we carry our policy forward. Well, we will carry our policy forward. There are moral as well as economic and social reasons why the distress of young people in the care system should not be used to create private profit taking. And we will, with the courage that the cooperation agreement gives us, work together to find innovative solutions in a problem that will need persistence over a whole period of time in order to bring to full fruition. But we are determined to do it. And the creation of new cooperative models, not-for-profit models for the care which those young people need is at the heart of the policy that we are pursuing. Finally then, Chair, to Arloesi Cymru, our commitment to create a new community-owned renewable energy company here in Wales. This is an enormous agenda which I cannot possibly do justice to in just a couple of minutes, but I have a deep belief that the future of the Welsh economy is to be found in taking advantage of the great natural resources we have in Wales in the face of the fourth industrial revolution. we are committed not simply to the expansion of renewable energy in Wales, but to making community ownership a major part of the way in which that will be achieved, both through the publicly owned energy company that we are setting up ourselves as a government, but also by ensuring that a gigawatt of renewable energy production will be in the hands of local ownership by 2030. Now, this is a really ambitious aim, but we are well on the way to achieving it. It will require all the qualities that I've been talking about this morning, and it will, using a word which I'm not generally keen to use, it will, I think, be really transformative in the way in which we will retain locally the social and economic benefits that will come from Wales's investment in that renewable energy future. To return to where I began, however, none of those ideas, none of those big ideas are conjured up out of a clear blue sky. Every one of them have behind them an attention to St. David's advice to us. It is by doing the small things first, adding them together, bringing them into that collective and cooperative way of working, that we build up to the creation of big ideas that are genuinely achievable. And as a practicing politician, I suppose I've always believed that that is a major obligation for me and for my colleagues in the Senedd. Our obligation is to make sure not simply that we have big ideas, but that we are able to translate those big ideas into the practical actions that make a difference in people's lives. Thank you for everything you are doing as part of today's conference to add to the repertoire of those ideas and to help us here in Wales to sustain this way of working that we have now developed over nearly 25 years of devolution. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Mick.
Thank you very much, Mark. Very, very moving speech, and what a fantastic contribution. We have the one burning question, which David Smith has been seeking to identify from the chat or otherwise. So, David, I'm just going to come over to you now to put that question to Mark Drakeford. I can't hear you, David. You're muted.
Mick, I'm in a difficulty because I've actually proposed the question, so I shall recuse myself on that one and ask Chris Hall to deal with the question.
All right, Chris, over to you. Chris.
Hi, thank you, Mick. We've got a question then in respect of housing cooperatives, community-led housing. Could you highlight how we as the public can access the funding and resources supporting land asset transfer, in particular NHS estate, to allow people to develop housing, transport and necessary facilities that are required in their local area? So it's clearly trying to focus on housing and a cooperative angle on housing. So that's the question for Mark Drakeford.
Okay,
Chris, thank you very much indeed. So it is a big question. Thank you for it. The Welsh Government has regularly supported cooperative housing developments in different parts of Wales. I have one in my own constituency, as it happens, so I'm very familiar with how all that has been made to happen in a practical sense. At the base of the question is, how can communities that have an interest in taking forward cooperative housing ideas access the land? If you haven't got land, you haven't got a starting point. And we have established a new branch within the Welsh Government, which is dedicated to identifying land that is in public ownership in Wales but which is not being used for any productive purpose. So it's called Syniadau Cymru, which in English I guess is Welsh estates, and it works with local authorities, police authorities, health authorities, any aspect of the public realm where land is to be found and where we believe it could be released for productive public interest purposes, and that certainly would include cooperative housing. How do individual groups with an interest in that pursue their particular proposals? Well, I guess in many different ways, but for me, maybe a starting point that helps to cut through some of the complexities to go to your Senedd member and ask them to help. They will be able to open doors, gain access to information, make links with people who are employed to give advice on the ground about these things. And if you were looking for just a practical suggestion about how to take advantage of the fact that there is not only a Welsh Government positively disposed to this sort of development, but a Welsh Government that has set up a new means of achieving those sorts of outcomes, I'd do it if through a local Senedd member, and hope that would allow you to make the progress you want to make.
Thank you very much, Mark. Very aware of the time pressures you've got, so we'll happily release you to the pleasures of the Welsh Executive Committee this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to just I don't know how on the internet we do a round of applause or whatever, but thank you very much for that.